Welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us with Brandon Handley. Because you're already great at everything else, why not fatherhood too?
Hey there, and welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. This is Brandon Handley. I am the creator and founder of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I want to say thank you for choosing to spend your time with me today on Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I also want to just encourage you, if you could, to go over to the podcast on iTunes, download it, subscribe to it, and leave a review if you have found any part of this at all to have an impact on your life. That will help others to find the show and listen to it and get the same type of enjoyment that you are out of it. Also, if you are a father and if you're looking for a place that you can go celebrate fatherhood or perhaps even share some struggles and get some advice or find some like-minded men, I strongly encourage you to stumble on over to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, the private Facebook group, and ask to join. I'll let you right in. That's going to do it for right now, guys. And please stay tuned for today's podcast. What's up, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us? This is Brandon Handley. I've already given my intro, but I wanted to do a slight intro here as well, where I've got Justin Baily from Code of Character sharing the stage here with me on a Facebook Live we did way back in November, but hey, it's always green to me. We had a great conversation, and I wanted to make sure that I finally got this out to you guys on the actual podcast so that you could really have the opportunity to check out what Justin Baily from Code of Character is doing. If you haven't hooked up with this guy, run on over, introduce yourself, say you came on over there from Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. He's a great guy doing some great good out there and helping a lot of guys out in his group called Code of Character. Check out his website, Code of Character, and his Facebook group, Code of Character, and of course, his podcast. Check it out, guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Let's take ourselves back to the hot topic. I'll let you fire it off.
I think that was in your group, I believe. In Fatherhood.
It was in like the Dads That Lead.
Oh, was it in Dads That Lead? Okay, yeah, Dads That Lead Facebook group.
Yeah.
Good group of guys. And the thing that struck me, so the question, I think I posted it, didn't I?
You posted it, yeah.
I think it was something like to spank or not to spank. That's the question, or something. I'm sure it was something very clever. So
you're very clever. You're a very clever person.
Yeah. But I was actually just looking for some guidance to see, I think in 2017, I think you have a very wide range of people who are, spanking all the time to people who are repulsed by it. And so I thought it was a question. Yeah, I'm going to get there. But so I put it up there, but I didn't know how many people would be open to say they were, because a lot of people, I don't think in public, the people that do spank, I don't think in public, a lot of people bring it up a lot. You're not quite adamant about it, but there were some people definitely that were pro spanking. And then you came out with a very, very strong opinion against spanking.
Yeah. And
not only, I haven't still not to this day seen you that passionate about a topic. And I've seen you passionate about some stuff, but right. You were very passionate about that topic, but also well articulated in your statement. And it really made me pause to think two things for myself to kind of go through the things that you were bringing up and how that relates and how I can see that in my own fathering, but also, as a conversation to a group of guys. So I thought, man, we got to get together. We got to talk about spanking, and we got to talk about any of the other stuff that you're seeing a lot in your group that I'm dealing with, that I'm seeing in my group, and just kind of work through these topics, man. Cause I think you and I vibe well, but we might have some difference of opinions on some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and you know what, man, the other thing I want to bring up too, is that's the power of like kind of a private men's group, right? That's the power of a private, your private group, in Code of Character, the Dads That Lead, my private group. That's like gives you a little bit of security to know that, hey, it's kind of like what stays in Vegas, right? And I want to highlight that because that's a place where you go to let that stuff out. And yeah, so you brought it up, and I don't know that I lost my mind. But no. I was like, dude, I was like, hell no. I was like a hell no to it. And there was a bunch of people that were like, that are still spanking and thinking that's right. Where I finally dropped off, dude, was when somebody said it's called a whooping and it's very okay. I'm going to say that again. It's called a whooping and that's very okay. I was like, I can't talk to these people, dude. I'm out. I'm out, because that's the person that just basically says, I was raised this way and I'm going to keep doing it and it's perfect and it's okay. My question to you, are you a spanker? I'm not a spanker. Obviously I'm not a spanker. I don't believe in it. My family was, my father was very abusive, and I was raised to, so I didn't grow up with him, but I was raised to just, that's not how things get done.
And so you have never been a spanker with your kids?
I've probably like spanked my kid like once or twice, like out of like mad frustration and just like nothing left in the world. And after doing that, you're just like, I felt like this like guilt washing, I felt filthy, dude. And just like disappointed with myself, knowing that I have a much better, knowing that I shouldn't allow my child to get have that kind of control over me, or me lose my control to the point where that's okay, because it's not. And if I can't control my own temper, and if I can't control myself to the fact that I've got to reach over, like bend the child over and spank them to get a point across, I got a problem. That's my personal opinion.
So that's going to lead us into some other stuff, because the real conversation comes with what to do, what's next, right? Sure, if you can't spank, but yet you do feel out of control. So I was raised, and I was spanked from time to time, not excessively, and never in an abusive manner, and always in a controlled manner, to where my dad would take me, he would kind of send me off to my room, come explain to me what went down, and then, spank me or whatever. And so that I carried, so I have 3 boys, 11, 9, and 6 months. I'll take the pause. Yeah, that's a little bit crazy, but that's the ages. And so with my first 2, with the first one we did spank, and the second one also, not a lot, but similar, kind of the similar thing that I had been brought up in. And my wife was kind of on the same board. You don't spank out of anger, and you spank to correct in a controlled manner. But we were always, my oldest son is extremely strong-willed. So we were always trying to find something that worked. And things would work kind of for a couple weeks. We'd say, okay, well, he does respond well to taking things away, or he responds well from a timeout, or whatever it is. But they would go away very, very quickly. And so, as they've gotten older, that has, waned a little bit. Spanking gets, as they get older, it gets, for one thing, it gets ridiculous. But also my mind shift has changed. And there's been several times when I've kind of committed to, okay, even just yelling out in anger, saying, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to lose the control, whether you're going to spank or not. There's a control factor there that I think is very important. One thing that's very funny, though, is since we've had this conversation just last week, 2 weeks ago, we've been having some issues with my middle son now, who's been acting out. And I've talked to some guys in some groups, seems like a trend among 9-year-olds, it seems, but he's been acting out. And I went up to the room the other night. My 2 older boys share a room, and he had thrown this Lego jet plane thing at my older son. And my older son had thrown it, basically winged it at it. And my older son was bleeding at the hand. And so my younger son's like, I didn't mean to, and in that moment, I knew he had just, lashed out at his brother, and B, I knew he had just lied to my face. And I was extremely overcome with anger. And I kind of foresaw myself kind of going at him and spanking him or something of that nature, and saying, we don't hit people, while I was thinking about hitting him.
Right. Well, hey, that's actually, is from what I understand anyways, it's really a good way to kind of come at it, is to be like, exactly what you want to do, and you're like, that's not what we do here, right?
Exactly. But I foresaw myself thinking and doing that, and then I stopped, right, and at the ridiculous, and I think I actually chuckled a little bit to myself at the absurdity. But the follow on was, I just ended up sending him to bed early, but I didn't feel that was enough. But in that moment, he'd already had his electronics taken away from previous stuff. In that moment, I was like, I don't have another play. Go to bed, because I'm too angry to really make a rational parenting decision, And so that's what he did,
Yeah. No. And hey, look, man, that's true. It's very, even look, as hard as I try with like all types of, meditation, with all types of mindfulness, I've got like, what I'm calling now, like the recent, like the observer. So I can like step aside and like actually watch my thoughts for a second. Even with that, I'm like sometimes overcome with, blind rage.
Right.
Not to the point where like I go and I, stab my child, because that would be stupid. But like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, I mean, made dinner the other night. I think it was Sunday night, made dinner, worked kind of hard on it. And I make dinner often, put it down. And my son, like, he like looked at it, gave it like I'm disgusted with this food face, and like put it down and like started walking away from it. I was like, put the food back on the table. And he did. And I felt bad for like just losing it. But I'm like, dude, I need you. And I looked at him, I stopped. I was like, I'm sorry for yelling, but I was like, I need you to understand that, like, I worked hard to put the food on the table for you. I put it on here to nourish you. And I just want you to, if you don't like it, I get it. Take a bite or two. And one thing that over this past year that I've stopped doing as much of is forcing the kids to, what's up, Roger? I've stopped forcing the kids to kind of stay at the table, right? And eat everything, because that was making dinner miserable.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, and we can look, man. So we can segue over into that too. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? The kids sitting at the table and taking and eating all the food. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So that's one of the trigger moments, right? And I'm big on, like you said, my wife does 95% of the cooking, but when she makes a meal, and my kids are generally picky to some degree, when she makes a meal, it's a lot of times not going to be something they want, something they need. Right. And I'm big on, you don't come to the kitchen and start complaining about any of it, right? You don't turn your nose up at any food. Right. You don't complain, and that will set me off quickly. There's a disrespect and, and that, those are my triggers. Right. And so we've done a lot of that, especially my older son, who all he wants is cheeseburgers, and that's really all he's ever wanted. And, we've done that whole, like 5 bites of the broccoli and this many bites, and you're counting bites and you're sitting there, but man, I like dinner. I like dinner time to be a nice, relaxing time. Right. And when it's not, it triggers me, So when things are going, like when we're having to count bites and like sit there for 40 minutes, we've done it all. Like you said, like we've made them sit there until it's eaten. We've told them to go to bed early. We've ran the gamut on that. We're past a lot of that now. I think we're kind of leveled out. My older son has really mellowed out. With being able to control himself. He used to have some fits and whatnot. And so that in the last year, he's really improved there. But that's a big one for me, is I got to have a peaceful table. We all sit down most nights, and I got to have a peaceful table. And if it's not peaceful, I sometimes lose my cool, and it takes me to a bad place for the evening. Right. Absolutely. Agreed. So I was really bad with that as well. Grace Line says my crew has to take a thank you bite. That's something I actually learned too, way back in the day. My aunt and uncle up in Washington State, I was turned on to the new no thank you bite, and I do that at home as well. But really, 2 things that I've done this year. One is, like, it's not worth the fight. They're probably fairly nourished. Try not to put as much on their plate. If they say they're done and they want to give this big to do, I send them out, man. I'm like, you know what? Thanks for coming to the table. Enjoyed seeing you tonight. Hope you have a. don't let the good Lord hit you, right? Right. But it has made dinner time. Meg's watching now. I don't know if my wife's watching now. I don't know if she'll chime in and say the dinner has gotten that much better or not. I believe it has gotten so much better. And then a second thing that I learned earlier this year on an interview that I had with Alyssa Dare Nelson, one of the 2 females I've had on the podcast. What she does is she has her children serve themselves. So they can't, they serve themselves, but they have to eat whatever they put on their plate. Yeah. And I like that idea a lot. I haven't done it as often as I probably should, but that way, like, they serve themselves maybe the first couple times. There's my Meg saying dinner time used to suck. She loves me. But that allows them to start to understand portions, right? And start to understand that, hey, they're kind of in control of the situation at dinner, and put the stuff on their plate. And, they're kind of in control of their destiny, right? Yeah. They learn that they don't have, if they take a whole lot, then they don't eat it, then there's going to be a crappy dinner.
and they can always go back for more. So take a little bit, and maybe if you like it, you can go back for more. So that one, those two, man, has made dinner time at the table so much better. Meg was actually very confused when we first started that, because I was like, yeah, go ahead, you get up from the table. You guys are cool. She's like, who are you? Because I just didn't want my dinners to be that bad anymore.
Right,
dude.
right.
And it just wasn't worth an argument. It wasn't worth ruining my evening over.
So do you have any issues with them being hungry later? And then
they eat snacks, and I feel like an asshole. But
okay.
You know what, man? It's just not worth. It's not worth it to me and our household and the sanity. And it's not like I feel like I'm giving them a win. I actually feel like I'm winning. You know what I mean? Right. So it's not like oh, you beat dad this time. Nah, man. Hop on out, go do your thing, and mom and dad are going to finish their dinner in peace, you know? And that's how we've done it for the past, I think, 3 or 4 months. And I think that there's easier breathing in this household at the dinner table these days.
Right.
Yeah. In all honesty.
Yeah. My wife and I are very much, I think that she would agree we're yin and yang on a lot of these types of things. And a lot of times that plays out very well because we're rarely both mad at the kids at the same time. The other one will kind of be like, oh, you know, kind of trying like not to like, you know, override the authority, but at the same time, kind of like, I'm not really totally on board with how you're acting about this.
Yeah. Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. So that works out well, but sometimes, you know, in that moment of like, I guess the biggest thing I struggle with 2 main things really as a father at this point is, you know, is kind of asserting the authority versus, you know, being that loving, graceful parent, you know, and then also with this situation, that whole, like you said, like you're battling like family peace versus, I guess I'll put air quotes out here, doing the right thing, like making your kid do the right thing. Right. Like they can't just do whatever they want. They can't just eat snacks, you know, all night long, you know, but on the other side of it is like, okay, it's the old pick your battles thing. And like, where is that peace going to be? But I don't want my kids growing up eating, you know, honey buns for every meal. Right. That's what goes through my head. It's not going to happen.
Dude, listen.
You know, it's that extreme.
I'm with you. Like, I mean, they eat like, you know, these peanut butter crackers and like popcorn and whatnot. So, I mean, it could be a lot worse. I feel awful too when I do it, but at the same time, I'm like, you're murdering my soul. But, you know, I don't know.
But you got some peace.
Yeah, you know, it's not just the peace. It's not just my personal peace. It's a household peace.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. And I think that the other part too, like you and I are both like just talking about like when it just kind of all wells up. Yeah, you want to drive like I'm the authority. You want to drive like you need to respect me. I'm your father type of thing. And you know, it's just. I think that what kills us is our expectations of our children, right? And remembering that they are children, regardless of how many times we try to beat it into our heads or their heads that, you know, we expect them to behave a certain way. They're still children. And we live in kind of also this instantaneous society that we're so used to things happening. I can't snap my fingers for real, but it happens so quickly in real life that we want these changes to happen immediately.
Yeah.
And honestly, and maybe you can tell me this too. You've had children longer than I have. But it seems to me to take a good 3 to 6 months before I see actual change in their behaviors. So I correct it. I'll say, hey, look, please stop acting this way. And it takes about 3 to 6 months before, like 3 to 6 months later, they're like an angel for like 3 days. I'm like, who are you? I literally ask them, like, who are you kids? I don't even understand. Have you noticed anything like that yourself? Like how long it really takes like a change to kind of come over your children?
So I've really noticed, this is going to sound bad, but I've noticed really that their behavior is almost not dependent on the strategies that I use.
Son of a bitch.
It's, you know, like their behavior is all cyclical, like the ebb and flow of like how much they listen, and how much they do what they're supposed to do, how much trouble I get out of them. Like, you know, my general presence and participation in their life is the same. But even though I'm trying like different kind of strategies and techniques, or if you will. I guess for me, I haven't really noticed a lot of like a winning formula. Like I've just noticed that kind of like if I can try, and I'm really bad at this, but if I can try to be on, kind of meet them where they're at in that moment, season of life, that ebb or that flow or whatever there might be, that if I can just ride out those bad times, I know that a good cycle is coming for them. So that might not be the right way to father, but I've just learned I got to be patient because I know something. I know, I don't know, and there's a lot of it too. Is the more like guys that we understand and that kind of science is putting stuff out. There's so much going on in there chemically and with their emotions at those ages and that kind of stuff. I wish I would have known that as a teenager and as a preteen, like how much control my hormones and my chemicals in my body had over my behavior. Cause I didn't know. I just thought I was insane,
Right.
And so, I also try to take a lot of that into account, especially my older son is getting 11 and he's starting to turn into like a young man. And he's getting a little bit of that man strength. When I wrestle him, I'm like, oh, this kid's getting strong now. He doesn't know it yet, but he's getting a little stronger,
Right.
So, try to be mindful of their actual, biological makeup and how that plays into it. And
Where are they? Like, I mean, I also still feel like, it's funny. Once you feel like you've got a little bit of a grip on them, they totally change.
Yeah.
Too. You're talking about the ebb and flow. Like I'm just thinking about like both my boys, like the one's a little over 5 now is like 5.5, and it's just really he's changed. Just in the past like couple months, he's turned into like somebody a little bit different than he was just a little bit ago. And I was like, dude, I thought I knew you, brother. I thought I knew you. And same thing with my older one, man. He's he's turning these corners. So it's cool and it's annoying as a father because like as soon as you think you got it all a little bit aligned, they're like I'm gonna be over here, and you can't keep up with that, and so you got to have the patience and you got to have for me. Again, I'm going to go back to that expectation thing. I've actually tried to loosen up on the expectation point, right? It's not to say that I don't expect them to wake up in the morning, get ready for school, make their beds, and do all these things, that type of expectation, but putting like an unannounced expectation on them to be more than exactly who they are every day.
Right.
And that's helping me to calm down a little bit more too with the children.
Yeah. And you brought that up a few minutes ago about the expectations of the children. And I was going to add on to that because I think a lot of it, at least for me, is expectations I had of myself, as a father and the things I thought I should be able to do, air quotes should, right? Because we always tell ourselves we should be able to do this stuff, and so, it's expectation management really all the way around. And once you kind of understand what you are limited by, I think that's healthy.
Right. What are some of the things? What are some of the things you're seeing in your group? Your code of character, and what's your private group called too?
The code.
The code. So you've got two groups, and you've got the code of character and the code. What are the things that you're seeing in there that men are talking about yourself as it relates to fatherhood?
I think the biggest one, and I think most of us are fathers in the group, but there's not as much father talk as I thought maybe there would be, which is cool. It goes where it goes, right? I think a big part that relates to that is men that just don't feel like they are enough, have enough to offer, don't see themselves as a leader, and all that bleeds over into fatherhood for sure. Even if that's not the conversation, that's certainly, because that's a big part of what started me on a lot of this stuff, or at least one leg of my journey was like, my kids are getting, I was deployed over in the Middle East, and my kids were getting older to where it was a little more than changing diapers and feeding them and, and teaching them the basics. And I was like, okay, I'm now influencing them on a different level. And, I kind of went through a lot of soul searching, like, do I have what it takes to raise them into a man in this world? And, what do I really believe, and how am I going to pass that on to my children versus giving them that freedom to, make their own decisions and grow through their own struggles and their own accomplishments and all that stuff. So, so I have firsthand definitely understand. I think probably all guys go through it. You just, some of them may not admit it. I don't know, but I think it's a lot of it is that self-worth. Am I enough to really raise this tiny being into a proper man?
I hear you. No, I think
or a woman.
I've seen it. I've definitely seen it. I want to tell you, I think I would admit something like that. I've always felt comfortable in being a father. I've always known and felt like I was fine as a father. Now there were other aspects outside of being a father that like I probably wasn't as comfortable with. When we talk about leadership capabilities and some other things, but those have also kind of taken a turn over again. This past year has been, I mean, dude, this past year for me has been huge. Starting up the podcast and really focusing on fatherhood and realizing that if I transform myself into the father that I want to be, I've actually become the man that I want to be. And then that echoes, echoes in eternity. But that takes itself off. And I keep saying, if everything's great in the household and literally gotten all my stuff together at the house and the morning goes well, the rest of the day is going to be awesome. Right. So fatherhood for me, focusing on fatherhood is how I've been able to focus on leadership beyond the household. And honestly, I've driven, I remember having thoughts. So I drive down the road. I'm like, how could you, I guess it's possible, but I just don't understand how you could never think that you're enough of a person to take care of these children and be who it is that they need. Right.
Well, I don't think that starts with most people from, just from my experience. I don't think that starts at fatherhood. I think that's something that we've just not addressed at that point. For me, I was like the inverse of you. Like I was coming up in the military, I was very comfortable with leadership and I was very comfortable at being, technically good at my job and being able to lead and teach and all that stuff. And so what happens with my kids was when they came around where they started asking me questions that I didn't know the answer to. And I was very used to my whole life knowing everything, right? Because I'm a recovering know-it-all. Yeah. So I had to kind of know how I could kind of guide them and answer those questions or be okay with not answering those questions also. But I think a lot of it stems, I got married very young. And so I did everything kind of backwards. We got married and I almost crashed and burned my marriage. And so my first step was don't be a jerk to my wife. That was like my first step on self growth, right? Don't be a jerk to your wife, right?
Yeah, that's high on the list.
Down the road, it was like, okay, now be a good father. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was almost like now I'm in that phase of like now be a good man. Right. As to where if I had done that first, it could have been a catch-all. But I was just treading water, like trying to make it to that next marker.
Well, I think it's a lot like you said too, right? It's like, unfortunately, and it's true. I'm sure it doesn't happen to every man, but like, listen, we're driven by like hormones that are put in our bodies to, for lack of better terminology, are to perpetuate the world, right? Like we've got we're at that point of our lives, we're just basically semen looking to populate the world and survive. and that's not gone from our bodies yet, man. So that just blows away like the first 20 plus years and of our lives. And I'm sure some people make it out of there a little bit better, but
and I will say, just this isn't about this, but since you touched on it, if anybody's out there listening, like that controlled me, the testosterone in my body, I am convinced that controlled me from like age 13 to 25, probably. And I didn't understand it. And it caused so many problems. And I literally, like I said, thought I was crazy lots of times. And now I still might be. I'm not saying I haven't been cleared, but that's a big deal. I mean, if you've got some stuff you're working through and you're trying to figure out, and a lot of your reasoning maybe doesn't gel with reality, and you get little glimpses that maybe that's going on. Like you might have some stuff going on in your body chemically, and start searching that out, whatever that, I'm not going to tell you what that process looks like, but it could be natural and it could be, something unhealthy going on.
I think the other thing too is, and I'll bring up the the Facebook men's groups, the local men's groups. If you're a churchgoer with men's groups, seek out other men and create a bond. Find a mentor. Find somebody that a group of people that you can learn to trust. If you don't have somebody already, like other men in your life that you can trust. I grew up without a father, so not having somebody to kind of bounce off of in that regard kind of left me without having somebody bounce off that regard, and so kind of just holding all that in, and now more so than ever, we've got Facebook, your group, tons of other groups, my group, and again, plenty of other groups. I'm not saying it has to be the one of ours, but find some other men to go in and have a conversation with, and what's going to be awesome is you're going to find out you're not as crazy as you thought you might be, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, it happens to me all the time. I do it all. And you're like, there's like 30 of those dudes are going to say the same thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what you're doing is right or wrong, but at least then you're like, oh, okay. So what did you do next? And you've got some people who you can kind of work with. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. Even I mentioned with my 9-year-old, my wife had kind of been like my wife and I have been kind of talking to each other, like, what is going on with him? Like he was normally like, he didn't talk back, he's more passive, and, now he's gotten much kind of bolder just with us, and I was in a couple groups and I started seeing a couple posts about 8 and 9-year-old boys, like flipping their personality. And I was like, and it's not any major diagnosis or confirmation, but it's like, hey, this isn't completely abnormal. Other people are going through this. This is a trend. And it does give you some, even if you don't get solutions and answers, it gives you that confirmation that other people are going through the same battles you are. I always say, like, people are unique, but your experiences are not. And so, like you said, there's people in every group that are going through the exact same thing, or they just beat it. And maybe, and could pull you along. So when I was deployed to that last time to the Middle East, that's the first time I got plugged in with a group of guys, and we sat down and started talking about real issues. And I'd never done anything like that before. And it was kind of weird, at first. But it was awesome. After a couple of weeks, sometimes we didn't talk about anything heavy. Sometimes it was just like sports and culture or whatever. And then sometimes somebody would be like, boom, like, I'm having serious issues with porn. Like, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to go deep tonight, or whatever that might be. So
sure.
Yeah, I echo what you say, man. And the online community is a fantastic opportunity. I don't think it's never, ever going to replace a real community and face-to-face and that stuff. But it's great, man. It's great.
I think it's a great start, right? I think it's an
absolutely
excellent start, because I think that, at least as far as I'm concerned, once we get out of college or something like that, or if you went to college, and then you just kind of start working, right? You just start working, and then, then you get married, and then, it's like, you're just kind of like, you become an island, right? It's just you, your wife, and maybe a couple buddies up the street, and whatnot, but really nothing that you're having like some of those deeper conversations with, like you're talking about. It's always like, hey, how's the job? Job's great, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of, you stick it right there, because anything beneath that, it's like, there might be tears, and nobody wants to see a grown man cry. And
to add on to that, though, the enormity of the web, like it's given a place for a lot of crazy people to get together and cause problems. But the flip side is this stuff that we're doing is like you said, like your buddies that you hang out and watch sports and go to the bar with, like, they might not be into this stuff, but you got millions of guys out there on the internet who are. So maybe you have, your own little tribe and band of brothers in your neighborhood that you grew up with or whatever, and you're not going to shake those guys for anything,
right?
And maybe you just supplement that with a group like Brandon's Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, or Code of Character, or something like that, where people are just willing to talk about some stuff and just really kind of fill you up in that manner.
Absolutely. Well, brother, I know you said we could probably do this for like hours on end. I know you said you had a hard stop at an early time. Maybe
I've got one more. Can I?
You got one more topic? Throw it up there, man.
Because I want to ask you this, because you mentioned something earlier, and this is a struggle that I have.
Sure.
And that is, you mentioned having the boys serve themselves, right? And I've struggled with patience as part of it, and that's having the kids do things for themselves,
right?
Knowing it's going to take 10 times as long.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
Right?
It's like murder. You got to leave the room.
how are you with that? Because just the other day I went out there and we were raking leaves, and as soon as they're involved, it's halt in productivity, and all I'm seeing is like my to-do list for the day. I'm like, this is my one Saturday with nothing planned, and I got like 50 things I got to get done. Yeah. And I saw a meme the other day actually that had some people in the yard, and was one of those 50s throwback kind of thing, and it said, invite your kids to rake leaves for 10 times longer results or something.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I had a guy on not too long ago, David Mooring. Basically, he said, let whatever your kids want to help you with, let them help you with it. Because that's a opportunity for you to bond.
Absolutely.
Whatever the other chores are that don't get done later that day, are they more important than that moment, right? It's happened to me plenty of times where, even like I think a week or so ago, where my son came up and looked at me at the bottom of the steps, and he was prepared for a no, and seeing the prepped no in his body and demeanor was crushing to me. I was like, well, that sucks. I want them to always be able to come up to me and at least have the possibility of a yes, right? So are there some times when I'm like, all right, listen, now we can't do it right now, but I want to say yes as often as I can, so that doorway is always open, and we have those moments, because is productivity changed? I don't think so, man. And does it murder your soul to watch them try, do the things, and it takes forever, and it can be done in like a second sometimes, but then I don't know, you just try and find something else to do to limit your time, or you encourage them, or something to that line, man. I'm with you though. I get it 100%. Again, and this is more so in this past year than before. I stepped back. I'm sure you've probably got a mindfulness practice. And we just, take a couple breaths, man. That's one thing you can control, right? Is like your breathing. So take a couple breaths, watch them, notice where you are with your children. Like, what's it actually smell like? Just be 100% there. And because, without trying to do that, and another thing is that I've been trying to do, I'm just going to share this too, is like, instead of saying this reminds me of a time when XYZ, I'm like, this reminds me of exactly right now. I just want to implant this moment that we're having in my memory, instead of saying this reminds me of all these other things. This reminds me of exactly right now.
That's good. I like that. Because the others kind of take you to another place in time, rather than right now, right here, right now.
Yeah, and I try to literally feel like what's the atmosphere feel like? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it humid? It's North Carolina. It's almost always fucking humid. And what's it smell like? What did it sounds like? So I just try to maintain the whole scene. And by the time I'm done maintaining that scene, maybe they've given up on raking leaves, or they've moved on, or something like that. But you give them that opportunity to be with you, and let them know that they're wanted there with you, right? Because there's going to be a time. I mean, my oldest is 7, going up on 8 already, and there's going to be a time when he doesn't want to hang out with me, and I get that. I want him to always say, "Hey, let's go hang out."
All right, I am going to summarize those. I got 3 Brandon Hanley fatherhood golden nuggets right there. We had always give them a chance for a yes.
Yeah.
I didn't love that wording, but there was you want your kids to have a possibility of a yes. There was always let your kids help you.
Yeah.
And then there was the third one, now that I'm escaping me, that was the best. And it was at the very end. What'd you just say at the very end?
I don't even remember, dude. Just like be present, just remember.
It was the presence thing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was absolutely be in that moment with your child.
Like
the senses, the sensory.
Yeah, take everything in there. Don't try and remember another scene that reminds you of what you're going through. Remember, like I'm trying to remember right now. I literally sit there and I'm like I want to remember this now. This is what I remember right now.
That's beautiful.
I want to lock in that scene. Because I just want to be there, man. I don't want to be somewhere else. I want to be in my life, and I want to be with my children. I want to be with my wife. I want to be with my family. I don't want to be thinking of somewhere else.
Awesome. I love that, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I wish we had a little bit longer tonight. Maybe, like I said,
again.
Yeah, let's pick it up again. For my podcast listeners, Code of Character, Justin Baily, where can they go find you?
Easiest place is Facebook, Code of Character group. You can go to codeofcharacter.com if you'd like, but the most lively conversation is going on in the Facebook group. We also got a podcast, Code of Character. Whatever you're listening to podcasts on, check us out. We put a new episode out every Monday, and we try to just hit issues that are important to us all with people of character. That's what we do.
Awesome. All right, guys. And if Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, for my listeners, Brandon Hanley is the man behind the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us.
Papa Preacher, you gave me that one. I loved it, actually. I kind of want to keep it, the Papa Preacher.
We are sticking with Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, confirmed. You were in there. Yeah, it was confirmed. Yeah. So there was a couple weeks ago, I was looking at possibly changing the name, and there was like almost a mutiny, which I loved. I spoke up and said, "Hey, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us is kind of why we're here. We enjoy the name. It actually kind of speaks to who we are." And I shout out to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us crew for just being as awesome as you are. But if you're looking for a Fatherhood group, head on over to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. It's a private group where you can kind of feel safe and be in there. And if you're looking for the podcast, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, and yeah, that'll do it for now. Yeah.
And if you want to watch some Facebook Live with some awesome graphics in the background, you check out Brandon Hanley, because this man is all over it. He's got it going on. I will also, I'm going to post this up on YouTube, guys, too. The one thing that makes me crazy on Facebook Lives is that you can't speed them up. So you can double time YouTube. Rock on. Brandon, I appreciate your time, brother. Dude, absolutely. It was my pleasure to have you on and just having a conversation, man. Absolutely, my man. We'll talk soon. Later.